Hey, it's Jen, and today I'm talking about when life is just feeling so hard. I'm Jen Anderson. I'm an empowerment life coach with Stronger Because Coaching, and one of the things I do is I help people work really hard to focus their limited amounts of energy and focus on things they really can change, instead of fighting against things they legitimately can't change, spending all that energy. So I want to talk to you about this thing that I just totally binge watched. It was an awesome TV show, and it was about the Eco Challenge. It's called The World's Toughest Race, and it was in Fiji, and there were 66 teams, and it was just so amazing to get to know all the different people and all the struggles that they were going through personally, even without going through the world's toughest race. Like, life was the toughest race, and then this was next. Some of them had Alzheimer's, and some of them had personal setbacks in their lives, military. One had blindness, one had lost some members of their military group, and they were just all out there working through some really, really strong obstacles and challenges anyway. But right out of the gate, the team that was seated number one capsized their boat, and they started out behind, and they had all kinds of things working against them. The weather got bad, it made everything muddy, and as if it wasn't hard enough to cycle up a long hill for miles and miles, they were pushing bikes through the mud. Like, it was amazing. And they just got through one thing after another. Well, life, I think, is kind of like this. We have obstacles that come up, things that we have no control over. And when we see them, we have a couple different ways that we can think about them. Now, in that race, the Great Eco Challenge, they didn't have another obstacle and be like, oh my gosh, this is just one more thing that's keeping me from the finish line. It was expected. They were like, they strategized. Sometimes they cried and just processed the sheer hardness of it all. But they did their best. And people gathered together and they cheered for all of them, and they shared their gear. Like, a team that was out donated a bike to someone who was still in and had broken apart and couldn't keep going without it. Sometimes they were lost and they found leaders and they rallied together. But the biggest thing that I noticed is they expected it to be hard. This was just the nature of the race. They weren't shaken with every new challenge. They took it in stride because that was just part of it. That's what they signed up for. And they weren't feeling the way they were feeling because of the difficult challenges. They were feeling the way they were feeling because of the way they were thinking about the challenges. It's much different when we approach things of, this is exactly what I signed up for. Of course there's a hill. This is supposed to be the toughest challenge ever. In life, sometimes we find ourselves being angry at the challenges, and it will be because of a thought. And the main culprit that I've seen is the thought, this shouldn't be happening. This is us fighting reality. It causes a lot of suffering. But what if this is exactly what life is? Where are the rules that say I shouldn't have this disease? Or people shouldn't believe the way they choose to believe? Or people shouldn't die? Or people shouldn't choose to act with evil intent? These are all rules that we've just made up in our imagination, and when life doesn't comply to our imagination, we get frustrated and angry. But we can choose to think, I can use this diagnosis to become stronger. People get to believe exactly how they choose to believe. People get to act how they choose to act. Life ends. How can I make my moments with each person meaningful and the very best? Another thing that I noticed is that the people in this race just assumed that the others were struggling too. And so they approached each other by uplifting each other. They shared together. They didn't push each other down. They assisted whenever they could. A lot of times they just bagged the whole competition and got together and worked as a team, even though they really were trying to race against the others. It was a race. But to them, they chose to think of it as an experience. They didn't waste their energy They changed their own experiences on the things that they had control over. They believed it was hard, and so they were more compassionate. So how we can apply this is when people lash out at us, when someone becomes ill, when someone makes hurtful choices to us, when someone leaves, or when we just feel sick, we can choose to think, okay, so I'm doing sick today. Just like those people, when they got to a waterfall that they had to climb, they said, okay, we're doing a waterfall today. How are we going to get through this? So I just want to offer that life is the greatest challenge. It is not supposed to be easy. We kind of just made that rule up and got angry when it didn't comply with the way we imagined it. When someone doesn't live as long as we thought that they should, that we imagined, when we end up with a diagnosis that we didn't predict in our lives, we start to resist reality. But there's another way to think about it. This is life. This is what I signed up for, and I can do this. And the other thing is, what would life be like if we just assumed that everyone was struggling, that it was just hard for everyone, and that everyone was just doing their best? And we can allow others to make their choices and totally own our own experience by saying, this is what I'm going to make out of it. Okay, so life is a challenge. It's the toughest challenge. This is what we signed up for, but it also means that we're made for this. Look at what we've done so far. What's coming next, we can handle it because we've had the mental and emotional workout it takes to make it through hard things because we've made it through hard things. Okay, go help someone else and go take on your greatest challenge.
Could you use some insight into how to apply these things into your life today? Just find a link for a free consult on StrongerBecause.com.